of doing business on Guam. We further believe that offering employee benefits should be based on the business entity's ability to fund the benefit and should not be publicly mandated. We are particularly concerned that this proposed referendum targets a specific business type. While we are not in favor of across-the-board tax increases or mandates, we are concerned that hotels and lodging places are the entities singled out in this legislation, when in fact this industry does offer qualified health benefit plans for their employees. To our knowledge, there is no unique correlation between medical costs and hotel workers that would result in higher hospital utilization rates. We are additionally perplexed as to why this act has been introduced in the form of a voter referendum. Business entities take risks in doing business every day. The types of benefits individual companies offer employees should rest with the company and not the voting public. Referendums are meant for issues that affect the island as a whole. In recent months, there has been legislation to raise the minimum wage, the creation of a Guam FMLA, requests to enhance fees and licenses, and a proposal to raise a number of taxes, among other items. And the Guam Chamber of Commerce has remained consistent in its position that we would not support legislation that has the potential to hinder a business's ability to control its operating costs. While we recognize the current crisis at the Guam Memorial Hospital, we believe that the hospital should be more deliberate in seeking greater reimbursement from Medicare, Medicaid, and MIP. Additionally, the hospital should examine internal measures to address its financial crisis, such as reviewing its staffing pattern to be leaner and more efficient. Greater dialogue between legislative and executive branches should be pursued, along with public and private sector collaboration. The Guam Chamber of Commerce supports the enhancement of employee benefits, specifically with medical insurance programs. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, the Board of Directors decided to pursue a health insurance initiative where members, specifically our small business members, would be able to pull together to create one large group, which ultimately provided them with the opportunity to negotiate for better premiums and benefits. The program continues to exist today, and we feel it should be a model for other organizations and entities to consider. So in closing, we support the author's intent in finding solutions to help the financial crisis at GMH. However, we believe that the bill is not the solution. Government mandates that impact operational costs have the dangerous potential of hurting jobs and salaries. The government should continue the discussions in aiding GMH while seeking creative ideas toward this pursuit. We thank you for the opportunity to submit our position, and the Chamber certainly stands committed to working with your office and members of the legislature in identifying workable solutions for our island's only public hospital. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Mary Rhodes.
Hafaday and good evening, everyone. You have to be patient with me. I speak on behalf of our 28-member hotels, so I will take 2 hours. I'm just joking. No, but I do have provide copies.
Pull the mic back a little bit because
I know I'm so loud already to get another. That's okay.
Wait, before you leave, any questions for the Chamber's representative? Wait, before Mary continues, because I'm just hearing that you have to leave.
I have to leave. I'm so sorry.
Catherine, I mean. Any questions for Ms. Castro?
No, Ms. Castro.
Mr. Blas, do you have to leave or you're okay? Okay, yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for your participation. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mary, proceed. Yeah.
Okay. As our chairman, Mr. Joe Blas, has said, although we would like to have all of the hotels, some of them are represented here today, but we will have additional written testimony submitted with our final draft of our testimony that will be submitted within the 10 days. And that's a reminder to everybody that we do have 10 days within this public hearing to submit the written testimony, and we encourage everybody to do so. So if you allow me, and thank you so much for this opportunity to meet with everyone. Chairman Rory Respicio and all of his distinguished colleagues. On behalf of GHRA's Board of Directors, as well as members who represent more than 300 businesses on Guam, including 28 member hotels, we strongly oppose Bill 359-33, which seeks to provide a binding referendum during a general election. During a general election, that's requiring the hotels to provide insurance to all of its employees and all of the dependents, which anywhere in the world you wouldn't find that. And I know we try to do things here on Guam. We want to, consider things that are special, and we want to try to do things, but we have been deeply actually hurt over the years in trying to do some special things here on Guam, where it really costs businesses, and it really puts a damper on when businesses are wanting to do business on Guam. They find that it's very difficult and more expensive, and it's for things like this. I want to be clear, though, that this is not, the hotels against the uninsured population. It's certainly not this. And I want to make sure, and that's why at the beginning of my letter, I do go to the intent and identify, together with Chamber of Commerce as well as the Guam Contractors Association. I know you have a copy of their letter as well. We just do not support any measure that creates a government mandate on the private sector that strictly targets one business. Also, or industry, we also oppose any legislation that increases the cost of business, especially when it's not founded by data. And the data here, that there is no data, it's actually trying to correlate some information that is available through media or through reports, and trying to connect the dots on areas that really aren't directly correlated. And so I'm here to further provide information and to address some of the things that were cited in this piece of legislation. Bill 359 cites that the Guam Community Health Assessment, released in 2014, reports that approximately 23.4% of Guam's population was uninsured between 2000 and 2011. That's approximately 39,000 people. I have 12 years of health insurance experience, and I can tell you that that is a growing number. We've seen this issue for a very long time in Guam, so it's not a new issue. And as Senor has said, our chairman, that over the last 27 years or more, the insurance or the hotels have continued to provide health insurance to its employees over the years. This is an important issue, though. The problems at GMH are important issues, but the direct correlation is really the uninsured market, but also the insured population who doesn't pay their bills, right? So Bill 359 is trying to make this correlation with the industry, which really doesn't apply. We need to address the real issues, and we need to get the data to support these assumptions. I encourage Senator Nicholas, through his committee, as well as the members of the 33rd Guam Legislature, to work together to better understand the uninsured population and the outstanding receivables at the Guam Memorial Hospital. This is the heart of the problem that Senator Nicholas is trying to address. GMH's financial problems are not the liability of the private sector. We already pay our fair share in taxes. That is what the government of Guam receives. They don't produce any products. They don't deliver any services. The government does not produce anything that they sell out to the community to create revenue. They rely solely on the revenues of the private sector companies. The private sector industry already pays its fair share in taxes as well as government fees. And those are the monies that go into the general fund. And those programs pay into Medicare, Medicaid and MIP and the uninsured. We need to look at managing those problems. Furthermore, we've seen these same problems on the collections with not just GMH. We've seen these problems continually at Department of Revenue and Taxation. So these issues are not solely a GMH issue. It is a government of Guam issue, and those things need to be addressed. However, GMH has a much larger, more long-term, and actually very complicated issue that deals with more related, directly related, and proven to be related to compact impact funding, local funding of Medicaid and MIP, outstanding receivables owed to Gov Guam, to their own agencies, general accounting problems, the collections and billings, and keeping up to date with the coding system at GMH so that we can be able to bill against the federal programs like Medicare. The legislature has the authority to conduct an oversight hearing to inquire about the uninsured population, as well as the outstanding receivables at GMH. Why aren't we doing that instead? Let's look at where the problems are within GMH rather than always just going through the board. You guys can certainly conduct that oversight hearing, not just for GMH, but also Revenue Tax. GHRA has worked side by side with Guam Chamber of Commerce, together with the government of Guam, both legislative and the executive branches, to address these issues over the years. Not in recent years, though, but we're willing to work with you on that. The issue is not about money. The issue is the management of the money and the operations of the services provided by the government of Guam. The hotels and every other employer in private sector, because this is not, today it's a hotel issue, tomorrow it's all of private sector probably. So we already create industries, we create jobs and services. Those all translate to generating money for the government of Guam through tax revenue and fees. Bill 359 mentions one of the main reasons why GovGuam is unable to address the financial challenges of GMH, and that is because we missed the boat with the Affordable Care Act. That's true. There's no mention of how we address that issue. I know that that's a much bigger issue where we have to go through Congress, and we also have to be part of a whole effort to get that funding. We have all the mandates of Obamacare through Affordable Care Act, but we don't have the subsidies. Though that's where we could have addressed those issues with the uninsured population and find opportunities to get those subsidies and programs to help offset our costs. But why aren't we having that conversation? Why aren't we moving towards that direction? I know there are talks of a universal health care plan. Although we don't necessarily agree with all of that, we should discuss all those issues, not target one business sector or one industry to offset the costs. We already do that by providing taxes and fees. Bill 359-33 gives the impression that insurance is not being offered to hotel employees. That is completely untrue and unfounded. Bill 359-33 and all other legislative bills need to start having supportive data. Where is the data to support that? We can't make assumptions and create legislation. We should have been doing this in a roundtable discussion. I always make myself available. I always tell each and every one of you, I'm always available for that. Our sister organizations and stakeholders are always willing to work on that. And I'm telling you that GHRA is working together with GCA and Chamber of Commerce and the Chinese Chamber of Commerce and all of our sister organizations like SHRM to address these issues, because we are constantly being attacked and barraged by really these arbitrary legislations. We need to be able to address the fact that we have been pulled into this. It has nothing to do with us. This is a GMH issue. It's a GovGuam issue on how to address the financial problems with GMH. According to a GHRA survey, based on the data from its 28 member hotels, yes, Sinuat was right, 97.3% of all GHRA members have insurance. But 100% of all the hotels provide insurance. They always have. They may not provide every one of them like a 401k plan, but they all have health insurance. And I know the concern is not everybody can afford it, or maybe not everybody opts in for the insurance. Out of the 100% of the hotel employees, 81% are full-time. They are all eligible for insurance, 81%. That is way more than any other market you'll find in the tourism industry. Most tourism industries, this is Guam, right? We operate all year round. We're 24-hour operation, 12 months a year, generally good weather. We're not Colorado or someplace in Europe that operates half of the year or only during summer. We operate all year round. So we have to keep our staffing high. We have to keep our employees full-time, and we have a lot of people who have a long history of service on Guam. And we have generations of families who have worked as housekeepers or food and beverage people or just general employees in the industry. So 81% are full-time and they're eligible for coverage. Of that, those who avail of the coverage, it varies between 75 to 90% who actually take the benefits. Okay? So the concern is then, what about the part-timers? What about the casual employees? That makes up 18.5%. That's only 1,140 employees who are considered part-time and casual. If your uninsured population is 39,000 people, why are you attacking 1,140 people who you may or may not know have insurance somewhere else, or maybe employed somewhere else where they have insurance, or maybe their spouse has military benefits, or maybe their parents work for the government of Guam and they're still under those benefits. There are a lot of reasons why people go uninsured or don't elect benefits because they have insurance elsewhere. Or yes, maybe they don't afford it. They can't afford it, but maybe they have 3 jobs and they are paying their bills at GMH. There are a lot of reasons of why or why not, but we don't know those because we haven't addressed those. We haven't looked at the uninsured population or the outstanding receivables at GMH. So of the 18.5%, like I said, a lot of them do not elect coverage or even have coverage because they're not eligible to have coverage. So who's to say, and again, I've had 12 years of health insurance experience, who's to say insurance companies are even going to cover part-time or casual employees? How do you prove that they're gainfully employed with these companies? They're not on the SWICA with RevTax. They're not reported that way on SWICA. How do you prove that they actually are employees who are on part-time and casual? So how do you verify employment? And how do you avoid adverse selection? The health insurance companies will not allow, nobody ever allows, nowhere in the world do you find part-time or casual employees getting insurance in a business. Maybe part-time, depending on the hours worked. But you will never find casual employees getting 100% coverage. Not even the government of Guam requires employees plus all their dependents covered at 100%. Nobody covers that except the military, right? So we are not the military, we're private sector, and we do provide our fair share in the benefits coverage. But of those 1,140 employees, I think it's really a big assumption to make that they just aren't paying their bills at GMH. They aren't those customers who are the uninsured population. If they are the uninsured, okay, then let's have that discussion. But we don't know that. So if Guam does not have a heavily regulated insurance market, and I've shared this with Senator Nicholas, we have an insurance commissioner through RevTax. We need to have these discussions. We have not had a very active insurance commissioner in a while. And that's the challenge Senator Rodriguez will have when he brings up the discussion of universal health care. Our insurance commissioner, yes, it's Art, but before, that person who has served for a long time is now retired. But nobody is really rounding everybody up to have this discussion. And that's really where it belongs. It does not belong on a referendum for the rest of the entire population, for the entire people of Guam to vote on. So where do you find an employer anywhere in the world, like I said, who actually covers employees plus dependents? Who's going to cover that cost? If the intent is really because of the unpaid bills at the hospital, why are we going to put it on the backs of the employees all over again, or the employers who are already paying their taxes to help offset those bills? Bill 359-33 needs to be withdrawn as a proposed bill and should not be on the general ballot as a referendum. More discussion needs to take place with the legislature to include the insurance companies, the insurance commissioner, private sector partners, including ourselves, and the Employers Council, SHRM, to find better solutions that can take existing programs that we have in place. And I even talked to Senator Nicholas about, tonight was Dr. Sam Abini's hearing. There's opportunities even with Department of Labor to look at ways of how to have public-private partnerships to take those part-time and casual employees and help get them to full-time jobs and subsidize them. There's programs to help pay for their training so that they can get the skills to get full-time work. That's the kind of stuff we should be doing, not further taxing the employers. I noticed that there aren't other authors on this bill. And I take that as an indicator that there's no real support for this by our elected officials to take this further. And I really hope that's the case because it does not, again, belong on the referendum. But the intent of the bill, and I feel for those issues about GMH, and I understand the concerns because it is getting more complicated and way more expensive. But we need to address it in another matter, not put this out on a referendum and not target the hotels industry or the hotel businesses or the tourism industry anymore. In the Department of Labor report, I just wanted to check the numbers. Out of 65,580 total employees, out of civilian workers, there were 53,430 full-time workers. That just happens to be also 81% full-time.